Greetings, our Frederick Riddle here with another issue of Christian News and Views, episode 2621. And today is Friday, and we're looking at the Gaza Rafah Crossing. So let's get on with that. Israel will reopen the Rafah border crossing on Sunday, that's tomorrow, for people to travel between Gaza. Well, actually, not tomorrow, it's in 2 days. Today's Friday. For people to travel between Gaza and Egypt, government agency said. The first opening of effectively the sole route in or out of the Palestinian territory since May of 2024. The Israeli government agency that coordinates civilian policy in Gaza, COGAT, did not say how many of Gaza's more than 2 million people would be allowed to cross the border per day. A source familiar with the matter said the crossing would open despite ongoing discussions between Egypt and Israel over the issue, saying that Israel wants to allow around 150 people to come back per day. The opening will solely allow the passage of people, even though Gaza remains in need of vital aid that humanitarian organizations say has been stymied by Israeli restrictions. Many people in Gaza are still living in the rubble without basic services, struggling to stay warm amid harsh winter conditions. International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, President Marjana Spojaric said in a statement on Friday. She called for an easing of restrictions on dual-use items like water pipes and generators, which are essential for restoring the essential infrastructure people rely on. Under a policy that long predates the October 7 Hamas attack on Israel and ensuing war in Gaza, Israel inspects trucks bound for the Palestinian enclave to stop any items it considers to have potential dual use, civilian or military. Gaza has been devastated by Israel's 2-year offensive, which has left most of the strips in ruins and displaced virtually the entire population. Now, the world, this is my opinion, the world mourns for the Palestinians while conveniently forgetting that Israel was a victim of a horrible raid by Palestinians. That should not be forgotten. Actually, when you actually dig deep into this, you discover that the average Palestinian appears to be vehemently anti-Jewish. Not because the Jews have mistreated them. For the most part, they've been doing the mistreating of Israelites. They have a history of going into Israel, killing people at random, kidnapping them, whatever. And the attack on Israel is just the worst case scenario of that. And it has continued, so even since the agreement, there's been spot attacks. And so it's hard to be sympathetic to a Palestinian situation. Well, that said, I am sympathetic to them. Most of them didn't participate, as far as I know, in the attacks. They did look the other way. They didn't seek help. They didn't resist or anything of this nature. And again, you could come back and say, well, they didn't have the opportunity here or there. They didn't. If they stuck their neck out and to seek help, they would have probably lost their head or something along that nature. And so this is a difficult situation. But articles like this tend to put the blame and everything on Israel. Israel is a small country defending itself against a much larger enemy. That enemy has been defeated on numerous occasions, actually. This last one has been rather thorough, but it still exists. As far as I can tell, the organization and everything still exists. And so if Israel moves out of Gaza, it could come right back. Um, and so this is something that it's we don't need to get emotional as far as feeling sorry for the Palestinians. On the other hand, we shouldn't just ignore them either. So there's a very, very fine line here. And I'm glad that I'm not one of the Jewish leaders that has to figure out how to follow that line. But from what I'm seeing, and I'm sitting here in comfort in Florida, um, I'm not over there. And so my life isn't really on the line like theirs is. But that said, I think that it is a good thing that Israel is now going to permit a gradual reopening of the gate. I think that's a good move. It's what you might call a first step. It's them, the Jewish people, opening their hand instead of being a fist, which the Palestinians brought on themselves, the fist of Israeli strength. Now Israel is slowly opening its hand. Not as much as the humanitarian organizations want, because they're the ones that blame Israel for the problem. They are very conveniently able to forget what these people did. And so I think that Israel is operating in a very humane and practical way. They want to open it up. They want to be able to pull back their troops, really. But at the same time, they got a history there that they can see. And they got to say, okay, we got to be very careful how we do this. Otherwise, we're going to have the same problem again pop up. And so they're trying to do it in a responsible way. So hopefully, they will succeed in that. Now, the Trump negotiated agreement appears to be working, although there also appears to be some terrorists around that want it to fall. That's why every once in a while we hear about attacks. Kudos to both Israeli and Palestinian men and women who are working to make the agreement work. They want it to work. They're on both sides of this. They want it to work. But I don't know if they have the backing of the people to make it work. Because when it comes right down to it, the leaders can negotiate and make agreements, but it's the men and women in the streets that are going to make it work or not work. And you got to remember something, folks. These Palestinians have been raised in a climate of hatred. They've been raised to think of themselves as weapons, as soldiers who are, and their enemy is the Israelis. And in some cases, they even go on so far as to say their enemy is the Americans because America supports Israel. And so it's a very delicate situation. And we don't know how that's going to work out. But so far, there has been an easing of tension. Opening the gate will go a long ways towards easing that some more. And the way if I'm reading them correctly, that they start out with this low number of people who can go through the gate and then gradually increase it. They didn't say that, but that's the implication I'm reading in there, is that this is like a first step, and as things prove out, they're going to expand more and more and more. Now I'm reading between the lines here, and I could be reading it wrong, but that's what I am seeing, and if I'm correct, I give them kudos for it, and I do hope that they are successful. So that's it for today's news. I hope you've had a good week. And I always try to inform you, encourage you, and inspire you. Hopefully, I've done at least one of those today. Now you have a weekend. Enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you in the next episode.